Gonzalez, it's been a week. What do you mean we can't fly yet? Look, man, the ship has gotten pretty damaged. You should be grateful I was able to fix it enough that the auxiliary systems are online so it can shelter from the sandstorm. Alright, fair enough. But you told me you fixed it and we were going home. Are you crazy? I told you the Pikes found us there. It's not safe anymore. You're better off sticking with me until the heat's off. Just make a video and chill out. I'll be in the engine room finishing the repairs so we can take off once the storm clears. Ugh, fine. What to talk about? Oh, this website. Hey everyone, it's the Koopa Man. A while back I made a video on my theory of the true origins of Reshiram and Zekrom in Pokemon Black and White. In that video, we also discussed the third member of the Tao trio, Kyurem, and the ties that he may have to nihilism. Since then, I have seen a lot of reasons online that convinced me to take a deeper look at nihilist thinking and really break it down, and also share why it's idiotic and foolhardy. To start with, what exactly is nihilism? Well, to keep from going full dictionary, nihilism is when you celebrate the destruction of culture and make 100 videos a day about how everything sucks, all while showing your subscribe star and never once proposing any workable solutions. Or being in favor of doing literally nothing but sitting back and mocking. Gee, I wonder who that resembles. But to keep it in a sentence, nihilism is apathy given ideological form. Nihilists never create, they never solve problems, they never do any work aside from their own self-sustenance, and they always propose that everything is doomed and nothing is worth caring about. This attitude also has another name in the modern vernacular. That is being doomers or being black-pilled. But the thing about black pills is that they are suppositories, and evidently very addictive ones at that. So how did this form of thinking come into being? Well, we look not to 20th century Germany for its source, but to ancient Greece. Nihilism in its purest form is cynicism, named after the philosopher Diogenes the Cynic. In the words of Smart Boy Finky Pants, Diogenes believed that virtue was the most important thing, rather than the things you just think about. Which, come to think of it, sounds like a certain political wing of the aisle with a propensity for signaling their virtue rather than taking any action. Maybe these culture grifters are controlled by the opposition after all. As for Diogenes' own virtue, well, when your biggest claim to fame is throwing a featherless chicken at Plato during a debate on what is a man, and sitting around the streets of Athens doing nothing and asking for handouts while living in your own filth, there hardly isn't any there to begin with. Well, to be fair, cynicism is the belief that all humans are motivated by self-interest, which does bear some semblance in reality. However, the way that Diogenes lived primarily on handouts from others, it sort of makes him look less like the cynic and more like the hypocrite. But cynicism continued as the philosophy past his death and onwards to the 20th century, and even to today. In comes nihilism in the 20th century, which took the roots of humans are self-interested and removed the only virtue matters part, to come to the conclusion that nothing in life matters. Well, to be honest, it's a little more complicated than that. In the mid-20th century, a man by the name of Friedrich Nietzsche saw that what he believed to be the stagnation of cultural and human development within Europe and wrote a series of articles, essays, and books on the subject, forming what we know today as the foundational ideas of nihilism. Nietzsche himself had studied the Western philosophers, as most educated thinkers of the day did, but was particularly drawn to Diogenes and Soren Kierkegaard. Now, to be completely fair to the man, if you read into the context of what he was saying, Nietzsche himself was not a nihilist. Far from it. He formed the idea of nihilism as a great adversary that was causing the rot of Western culture, and for the most part, he was right. Some Christians attribute malice upon him from his quote, "God is dead." However, when you read the piece that the excerpt is taken from, you see that it's an allegory in which a man is fearfully saying, "God is dead," and "we killed him with our own hands," and a crowd of people who don't exactly know what he's talking about before exclaiming, "Oh, my bad, it's a bit too early." The greater context of this allegory is that Western culture was slowly losing its ties to Christian morality, and in the end was becoming far worse, which again, he was kind of right about. The time in which Nietzsche had lived was defined by major cultural shifts coming off the back of the industrial and technological revolutions that changed the way of life for the everyday man and woman. Much of it was happening so fast it was hard to keep up, and before we knew it, what we once understood to be our culture in the West had shifted to be nigh unrecognizable, and there was a group of people who wished to see it shift even more and even faster. Progressives, as they self-titled themselves, without even considering where they were going was any better than where they were. So Nietzsche was naturally skeptical of early progressive ideals. However, as I said, he was not a nihilist. So nihilism was not the antithesis to progressivism. If anything, he believed the two were hand in hand. He believed that without God and the guiding hand of tradition, mankind was doomed to destroy itself, and nothing could be done past that point to stop it. That, in the modern day, got corrupted into everything is doomed and nothing can be done, resulting in what we know today as nihilism. And before anyone asks, yes, I do count Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, as a nihilist. Nietzsche himself described nihilism as nothingness, the end result of progressive ideology after the destruction and deconstruction of our morals, virtues, religions, and traditions. All that would be left is a pointless emptiness, and he wished to avoid that at all costs. Which, come to think of it, was an opinion shared by the Catholic philosopher G.K. Chesterton, who lived roughly the same time as Nietzsche, and is another figure who is accused by dishonest pseudo-intellectuals to believe things that are the exact opposite of what he actually believed. Chesterton is most famous for his principle of Chesterton's fence. Two men walk into a forest and see a fence blocking their path. The foolish man tears down the fence without nary a thought. The wise man goes and finds someone to tell them why the fence is there to begin with, before taking any further action. It is the principle that reforms should not be made until the reasoning behind the existing state of affairs is understood. Or to quote Gustav Mahler, tradition is not the worship of the ashes, but the preservation of fire. Now then, what does all this have to do with the modern day black pill mentality? Well, you see, dear viewer, we are in much the same situation as Nietzsche and Chesterton. A shift in speed of technological advancement is causing culture to shift uncontrollably, and a group of people, so-called progressives, are pushing it to change even more drastically while abandoning all that came before it. Thanks to the works of Nietzsche and Chesterton, we know exactly where it's gonna lead, due in no small part to their predictions being proven true by progressive and socialist movements throughout the 20th century, ending in utter failure, mass genocides, starvation, and misery, as well as a feeling of hopelessness and nothingness for those living within. Today, we have three groups of individuals. There are those who are still progressives, who are ignoring the failures of their progressive ideology that peppers the 20th and 21st century. We have those like you and me who openly and actively oppose them, and then we have nihilists and doomers, those who believe that opposing them is futile and they will just win anyway, and cheerlead the progressives as they burn down all they hold dear in this world. In the words of Razor Fist, Hideo Kojima is a ripoff of Abraham Lincoln. Wait, this is the wrong flashcard. Black pillars and communists are the only groups convinced every failure of their own ideas is an argument for more intense applications of it. Many black pillars claim to be on the side opposing the progressives, but in actuality propose inaction, other than pointing out in all 100 videos they make every day, while doing nothing of any worth or merit to stop it. The way many of them are monetized over social media and treats it like this makes it clear they like it this way. Without progressives mindlessly destroying society, they would not have any videos or views, and would not be making any financial kickbacks from YouTube ads or subscribe stars. And thus we come back all the way to Diogenes the Cynic, proposing that he's smarter than everyone else, while eating scraps of leftover bread in a hovel, insisting that mankind is selfish and he lives off their own selflessness. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Basically, modern black pillars are no different to the feminists, SJWs, and leftists they claim to be against. Like those groups who actively search for sexism, racism, and bigotry everywhere, and tend to find it everywhere they look, a black pillar will find reasons to feel things are pointless and not worth fighting. They will claim to be against leftists and the like, but everywhere they look, they see them. And the sad thing is, a lot of them get enjoyment from it. They feel validated by finding woke everywhere, and they look everywhere the way the feminist looks for sexism, to the point they shame anyone who actually has their head screwed on right or actively comes up with solutions. They want to see the world burn, and they want it to continue because they get off on it. It really is the philosophical equivalent of cuckoldry, isn't it? That said, this has been the Koopa Man. Game on.